I don't want to go ahead. I don't want to.
All right, so we're officially recording. We are going to get started today. I do apologize last week. We were supposed to start this last week. I don't know what happened. I woke up. I didn't know what day it was. It was mad late. Like nothing about my life was making sense. So I was like, oh no. And I apologize. I was like, I got to own up to it. Like we all got our mistakes. This one's mine.
It's okay.
So we are officially starting our shift book today. If you do not have this book already, make sure you get a PDF version of it. We do have that for free. You can order these books on Amazon. We're bouncing between the Shift and the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. Both of them are really great reads. They're very easy to read, and it's very fundamental to building a strong foundation to your business. So let's dive right in. Hopefully everybody was able to read some of it ahead of time. If not, that is totally fine. The way that I'm going to be teaching these books is we are going to be going through them and just touching on different bullet points and having an open forum discussion with everybody so that everybody can have insight and understanding to what they're meaning in these books and these different tactics for building a very solid real estate career. So let's dive right in. I'm such a nerd. Okay. So the first section that we are covering starts on page 7, and it's shifts happen. A little play on words there, right? We all know what that means.
Yes.
Basically, when it comes to real estate, we need to understand that it is always fluctuating. There is no such thing as a market that just stays the same all the time. What's funny though is crashes or strong dips in the market actually happen regularly, like every 10 to 12 years. But every time one happens, there's always a group of people that are like so thrown off about it and didn't think it could happen. They thought that real estate was going to be great forever. And so when it fluctuates, then all of a sudden they're caught off guard. And that's where we usually see a lot of agents fall out of the business because they don't have a strong foundation to survive the influx of real estate market, right?
Right.
Now, looking at the market that we're in right now, would you say that we are in a top market or a low market?
I feel like we do have there is some movement. I mean, there's transactions happening. I think maybe mid is thing, or we can be like in the mid. I mean, it's a seller's market for sure, but then there are great interest rates as well.
Yes, like it kind of helped balance it out a little bit. So
I'm like it's almost like in the middle because everyone pretty much benefits in some way or another.
Yeah. So basically the way that this book describes the anatomy of this shift, which is on page 9, it talks about 3 different types of real estate market: a buyer's market where there is more than 7 months of inventory, a balanced market which is 5 to 7 months of inventory, and a seller's market which is less than 5 months of inventory. So we are in a strong seller's market. And according to this book, they actually consider a seller's market a peak of the real estate market as a whole. So as we transition into a buyer's market, that is actually when the sales will be tougher, simply because we're going to be trying to find buyers. Listings will stay on the market longer, and we're going to have to get creative with how we go about getting business. And that actually caught me off guard when I read it. It makes sense after you read it, but when I first got into real estate, it was a buyer's market. And I killed it. Like I was like, yes, I got this. I'm going to go get these clients. I'm going to get them the best deal of their life. They're practically getting paid to move in. But I did not realize that I was actually in a low market. I just thought that's what it was. So I didn't have anything to be intimidated by. So moving into a seller's market, I found this a little bit tougher. I still did very well, don't get me wrong, but I found it a little bit tougher because I'm dealing with a different type of client. Instead of going for buyers, I was attempting to go for listings because listings is where it's easy to sell right now, right? Because they're flying off the shelves.
Don't have to do much, but list it.
but listed. But it's tough on buyers. Like, you have to be creative with how you're writing the offers to make their offers competitive, right? So it's all about being informed and knowing what the market is doing, knowing how long listings are staying, what deals are winning, and just being involved is going to help you know and understand all of that. So as we start to shift, which I don't know if anybody's noticed, but the market, houses are starting to stay on the market a little bit longer. They're still getting multiple offers, but they're not getting as many. So we're starting to see that shift. Interest rates are starting to go up. So let's talk a little bit about what impacts a market. Like earlier, you said that the interest rates were really good for buyers, so it was kind of balancing it out. So what helps a market shift into the next market?
So what's the cause of the market shifting in this way?
Yeah, what are some contributing factors that we can consider when we're studying the market, right? Because we want to be experts in our field. What are some statistics that we can study so that we can anticipate a shift? We're never going to be able to predict it fully, but we can at least anticipate it. So what are some of the markers that we look for to prepare for that?
I guess even the one you just mentioned. I mean, the houses are staying on the market longer than they were when it was, really a hot sellers market.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And interest rates
going up. I think those are the only two. I mean, really, those are the for me, and I'm still new. I'm not sure, but just coming from a financial background, for me, those are big things. I think that interest rates matter. They make a big difference on how the market is going to be. So when you see that fluctuating, I don't know, at the low end, that, that's going to affect the market.
Yeah. Let's talk about some other things. What about jobs?
All right. People are going back to work now. Also the time of the year. Mm-hmm. It's, the school year starting. So I think that has an impact.
Yeah, so having a basic knowledge and understanding of the economy, how it works, will help you better prepare for how it affects the market. If we have a lot of people moving into the area, like before COVID happened, they were talking about building or expanding the base or the shipyard or something along those lines right there in Hampton, which meant 30,000 more jobs becoming available for that area. We could look at that as agents and know 30,000, there's a good chance that we're going to need at least half of those people are going to need somewhere to live, right? They may not live here already. So we can see that opportunities like that could increase the market in that particular area.
Right. So great. If they were to build that arena, aren't they were talking about building an arena here or something like that?
Yeah, I heard they are. Was it Portsmouth or where was it they were planning on building it?
I forget. I know that they were
that. Yeah. Those are job opportunities, and it's also bringing in more people to our area. So it's not just job opportunities, it's a tourist attraction, which will bring more people, and more people might want to relocate here. And we're also a military area. We have a lot of military. We have all branches of military over here. So that allows a constant circulation of people as well. So that's why in the Hampton Roads, we actually have a really steady market. Even though it could be technically a buyer's market, it's still a pretty steady market simply because we constantly have families moving. So that helps with our market keeping the stability. Mm-hmm. And when COVID happened, everybody was out of work. Everybody was on lockdown for 2 weeks. And the market came to a standstill for like 2 months because nobody knew what to do. Like some people were fully electronic, but our courts weren't. And everything that we needed to do to be able to have a deal go through, they weren't working. It was that simple. So it caused our market to dip a little bit, but we did recover quickly. So that was nice. But thinking about things like that, as we know, real estate is seasonal. Why do you think that real estate is seasonal?
Well, as we know, you're not, I guess I'm guessing it slows down during the winter times, during the holidays. No
Mhm.
one wants to make that big move, or during the holiday. That's a lot, for that time. Families are getting together, having dinners, planning, and traveling. So I believe that the winter time is affected. I think that also maybe by like in February, I'm thinking tax season, everyone's pretty much done their taxes, they have some extra money, and they're thinking, okay, well, they're either paying off bills or making major moves, decisions, financial decisions as to where they're living and what bills they're going to be paying or whatever the case is.
Mhm.
And the summertime,
Yep.
kids are out of school. A lot of parents take that time and opportunity to go ahead and relocate, put themselves in a better school district. And so that's also a main factor of, why things will shift. So
Exactly. So the natural market, the peak time is usually in the summertime. Like we start seeing the inventory increase, but not stay on as long, right? We start seeing more houses go up starting in the late spring, early summer. And then we usually ride it out. And I always said, like, right after school started, we'll see it slow down a bit. But yes, we do usually see more of a slowdown in the later months just because of the holidays, and it's cold, it's the first of the year. Like a lot of stuff happens at the end of the year. You've got Halloween, then Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then New Year's, then tax season. So there's a lot of money going out and not necessarily so much coming in, right? Because people get their Christmas bonus, but then they got their taxes right around the corner. So
exactly correct.
when those natural markets, like that's all, just about anywhere you're going to see those seasonal market shifts naturally. So that's not necessarily what people are talking about when they're talking about a market shift. A market shift is a little bit bigger than that. It's more economical and what's happening with our society and with jobs and interest rates and inventory, because even with today's market, with the being a very hot seller's market, we were still limited on how much inventory we were getting, simply because sellers were afraid to sell because they knew they needed to buy to move. And like where they're going to be they're going to be buying in a peak seller's market. So it was one of those catch-22s, like, do you really want to go through this, or how do you want to go about it? So we're seeing a lot more listings that are saying on there, the seller possession is like contingent on the seller finding a new place to live, which basically means the seller is doing a rent back so that they can stay in the home until they find somewhere else to live.
And have you found, I'm sorry, Holly,
go ahead.
Interruption, but have you found that sellers are understanding buyers are more understanding of that and are willing to agree with that contingency?
If it's in the right neighborhood, absolutely. And
if they want it bad,
I've seen some buyers let the seller stay rent free for X amount of time.
Wow.
Which is bananas.
That's
but what they're doing is they're trying to secure their deal. Like I had a buyer, they ended up deciding to wait until the market shifts before they decide to buy, because the market was just that brutal. But it was a nice, well cared for ranch brick house in a nice part of Chesapeake. The lady that was selling it had lived there, like it was her house, originally. It was very well cared for. They received multiple offers. I know for a fact the offer that they received was better than my offer, and my offer was full price, above asking, no closing costs. Lady could stay there for a month and a half to 2 months for free until she decided where she wanted to go. No inspection, no appraisal, everything waived, and they still lost out. Like somebody still offered them more money than what we had offered. So in the right neighborhood, people are signing over their firstborn child. So it's definitely crazy.
All right. So you just never know. I guess it's just looking at it as a case-by-case basis. Don't go.
Yeah, what I do is I educate the buyer on the comps for that particular home, right? I let them know, well, this is what I think it's going to appraise for. And then I let them know what we are seeing as far as houses go. And I help them build and develop an offer that makes sense to them, you know, because there are people who are guaranteeing above appraisal, but I don't necessarily advise that. I literally tell them, offer the most that you feel comfortable offering, to where if you lost the deal, you would still feel okay with it. You will know, well, you did all that you could, because the last thing I want you to do is feel like, well, you should have done this differently and would have won that house, because you don't want your buyers to have buyer's remorse by offering too much, but you do want them to understand what the market is supporting right now. So there are people who are paying above appraisal, but it's coming out of their pocket. It's not them getting into a loan that they can't afford. It's literally them spending their
Right.
savings. So
Ultimately, the bank will decide.
the bank, the as far as like the amount of the loan goes, that is up to the appraisal value. So if the house is listed for 250, you go in a contract for 260, and you
You're coming out of pocket.
that appraisal gap is going to be in cash. So if the house appraises for 250, then the buyer may or may not, depending on what they decide, be paying that additional 10,000 in cash.
And
So,
those are the clients. I'm sorry,
go ahead.
interrupting.
No.
But those are
It's an open discussion. There's no such thing as interrupting.
those are the clients that have saved for a purchase. Those are not clients that are like at the, don't have really good credit, first time home buyers. They may just, be new to this area. Maybe let's say like a lance corporal, or speaking on, regarding military, or like a young couple. They might not have really saved for this for, 5 or 10 years. They're just like new buyers and don't have the money set to the side specifically for a home. Those are the ones that are more, that are capable, that are able to make a deal like that. Or
in a seller's market, you have more solid buyers. Like in a buyer's market, I saw, now this is a special circumstance, right? But I saw buyers being approved with a 580 credit score. Now, to counterbalance that, their debt to income ratio was amazing. They made really, really good money. They just didn't have perfect credit. So I don't want anybody to think when it switches to a buyer's market that anybody with a 580 credit score is going to get qualified, because that's not the case. But now 640 all day long. And it is prepared buyers, because they at least have to, whether they have a down payment or not, depending on their loan type, they at least need to be prepared to have their closing costs. So we are seeing better prepared buyers. Like in a buyer's market, I could take somebody who has no money, like they have literally enough money to get through the inspections and the earnest money deposit, and get them into a house. So no money down, and have all their closing costs covered. And I've even negotiated for some of their credit card debt to be paid down. But we're not in that market.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We are not in that market. And you'll see that market more when it does shift into a buyer's market. But we have to be deep into that buyer's market. That's not going to happen again for at least another year or so before we actually see that. Like, at that point, we are getting listings not because the market is hot and they can get top dollar. We are getting listings because people need to sell. They need to move, or whatever the case may be. So they're going to do what they can do to be able to sell their house. In all honesty, like a seller's market, with the exception of paying above appraisal value and stuff like that, I feel is a little bit more balanced, because the seller pays for the commissions of both agents. And then to have them turn around and pay for the buyer's closing costs, we're talking like, $20,000, boom, right there, gone, just because they're paying for everything, so it's a nice concept to have a balanced market. It seems a little bit more fair, but as we shift into a buyer's market, we're going to realize that people need to sell their house regardless. So they're going to do what it takes to get it sold, which usually means selling to a buyer that needs a little bit more financial assistance.
I didn't know that. That's really good to know. I didn't realize that sellers are also, and I guess it does make sense, they're making over the listed price, and they are also willing to pay closing costs as well. Is that what I'm hearing?
So in a buyer's market, they're not making over list price.
No, in the
Not
seller's
buyer's
market.
Yeah, in a seller's
market
market,
right
they're
now.
making over list price, but they're only thing that they're not paying buyers closing costs right now. And they're only covering the commissions. And even then,
Okay.
some agents are reducing their commission just to get the listing because it's so
Got it.
competitive out there. So the sellers it is a peak sellers market. So sellers are making out like bandits right now. So when it's a little bit more balanced, then you'll see, the sellers not really getting above appraisal value, but not having to cover closing costs. So it's a little bit more balanced at that point. And then as it shifts, you'll see sellers not getting top dollar for their house, paying the sun, moon, and stars just to get a buyer in. And at that point, they're selling because they have to. They're not selling because the market's hot and they want to get top dollar and they want to. They're selling because they have to, which is where Bill's, what are they called? The little words. Scripts, Bill scripts. Oh, I still got COVID brain.
Little words.
I still got COVID. I still got COVID brain so bad sometimes. Like my vocabulary disappears. That's where Bill's scripts become very vital to you as you're trying to talk to different listings and stuff like that to try to get the listing, because Bill scripts are designed to find out what the seller's needs are to figure out why they're selling. So having that desire to move, like what is that desire? Is it because they have to move? Is it for financial reasons? Where's their hardship that's forcing them to relocate and sell their home?
Or because there's so many homes for sale, they are just wanting their home to sell. So many houses on the market, and they're like, okay, we understand the market. And in order for us to sell our property, because there are so many properties on the market at this point, they're willing to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah. So sellers right now, a lot of them are selling simply because they want to. They don't have to sell, which is why they can afford to wait and see what kind of offers they're going to get, and they can be greedy. Like we've seen a couple of different sellers put their house on the market for way more than what it's actually going to be worth, just to see if they can sell it like that. And sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't, but it is what it is. So, but I've watched them turn around and take their house off the market too, because as we're starting to see the shift, we're starting to see more savvy buyers. Like we're literally running out of people who have savings accounts right now. They're spent all their money. So as those buyers, like we have really strong, solid buyers right now, right? As that number gets smaller, right? Because not everybody's qualified. It does take work to get there. Sometimes it's not overnight either. So as we see that pool get smaller and smaller, you're going to have to see the houses are going to stay on the market longer. So the sellers are going to have to get more savvy when it comes to selling their house. They can't just throw it up there and say seller's not making any repairs and expect it to be sold for top dollar. Like we are going to start to see that. It's going to become more apparent, but looking at all the subtle changes that our economy makes can help you forecast that. Like you're not going to be a mind reader and be able to write it on a date or whatever and say this is when this is going to happen. But as you start to see the change, you can be ahead of the curve, if that makes sense.
Total sense.
So
I guess,
go ahead.
good morning. I guess that has a lot to do with the banks too. The banks have to, the bank has to shift with what is happening in the market too. Because
as the banks see their numbers drop for the loans that they are able to service, they are going to start making changes as well. Like as the stock market has interest rates climbing up, the banks have to be more competitive, which means they're going to start producing different types of loan products. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's not as many lenders who are doing like VHDA, which is that grant program to cover the down payment for an FHA loan. So they've gotten away from that, right?
Yes.
They have more qualified buyers who are required to put down money. But as the market shifts, the banks have to keep up. So we'll start to see a lot more competitive loan programs to try and get people qualified. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes.
even the government sometimes when the economy is not moving forward, the government make changes, in order to help the economy to move forward, to like
Yeah.
lower interests, um, etc.
Yes. Yes. The banks were that everybody kind of participates in how our economy moves forward. So yes, all of those things impacted. We have to be aware of what's going on. You guys can be aware however you want to be aware, right? So there's a lot of different resources that we can utilize to make ourselves informed. I'm fortunate enough to have two people in my life that study the market on a regular basis. That's Thomasina and that's David Elshanti, the lender I use. So between the two of them, I stay very informed simply because I like to talk about that stuff, and so do they. By them being aware of what the market is going on, I can trust them as resources. So you want to make sure your resource is trusted. Other than that, you can pull up for statistics on how long the houses are staying on the market. There are so many different reports that you can run from our local MLS from Rain that will give you those market updates on a daily basis. Other than that, you're going to be watching that one channel that has all of the stocks on. I have no idea what channel that is, but David watches it religiously, watches the market religiously. So you can keep your eye on the market and just being aware of what our government is doing, what laws are being put into place, what stimulus packages are being created for our people. All of those things are going to help you be informed and know how it applies to the market and what that's going to mean to you for business, right?
Yes, totally. Do you think we are going to go through a foreclosure? Can I say this? Like
Yeah,
in
short sales
2008?
and foreclosures.
Yes, soon.
I think we will see them, but I feel like we're going to see them for different reasons. A lot of people think that we're going to see them because the market's inflated right now because it's a high sellers market. I disagree. I think we're going to see them because of how COVID impacted our economy.
Correct.
How many people had their mortgage payments deferred? How many people are going to be able to afford to catch up? And I think that that's where we're going to see the foreclosures and short sales from, is from those individuals who were not able to maintain their mortgage payments and have not fully recovered from the impact of COVID. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
I agree. I believe that, excuse me, a lot of those people were unable to qualify for the programs that have been set in place because of their loss of jobs, their loss of income, the employer, and they've lost their jobs. And so in order to even reestablish their loan and get that new package, the lack of income really has affected a lot of people being unable to receive those modified loans and, and keep up with their mortgage. And so we will be seeing that. I know that. And I believe it'll take maybe I think we'll probably be seeing it in about two or 3 months, because it's already been a while. It's been a long time now. And people and mortgage companies have pretty much understood and have allowed these mortgagors, right, to pretty much default a little and go behind their understanding. But at this point, things are changing. And it's like, okay, now, if you're unable to afford this mortgage now, pretty much they're going to be forced to sell, short sell, or foreclosures. Which foreclosures? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, we can.
Because of the pandemic, and the government pretty much is understanding of it, are they foreclosing as easily as will they? Well, not that you can answer this because you're not the bank, but I don't know. Like, are they going to be foreclosing homes?
They will. So the thing of it is, with a lot of these banks, not every financial institution is out here to help the people, right? They are getting government grants for bailing out their clients, right? For their customers. They're getting a bonus from the government for helping these people push their payments off and stuff like that. But here's the difference, right? Some of these banks are expecting the full amount due at a certain time frame, and if they can't afford to pay it at that time frame, then they have to take out a second lien on the property and pay it out that way.
Like a balloon payment?
Like it's, so let's say that they deferred 6 months worth of mortgage payments, right? Wherever that deferment timeline is, those 6 months are due all at once at the end of that deferment time frame, wherever, whatever those guidelines are. Not everybody's going to have 6 months worth of mortgage payments to catch up, right? So then they're going to have to do a second lien to pay off, where they break up those 6 months over the next 30-year stretch, or however long they work out the terms. So it's creating a financial burden at that point. So even though the government got something for it, they're going to get their money back still from those clients. The only thing that they were given was a timeline break. In addition to that, the interest was still building up. So if y'all have ever looked at a closing disclosure where the full breakdown is on the mortgage payments, every lender does it. They break down every payment all the way down to zero.
Their amortization chart.
Yes, exactly. So they break down every single payment. That chart changes because they're not making the payments like they are. So those interest rates climb, and they could be paying a significant amount more in interest over that full loan spread simply because they deferred those 6 months worth of payments. And a lot of people did not realize that. A lot of people were like, I got to take whatever I can get because like I don't have the money. But then we have some people who just took advantage of it because they were like, oh, free money. It's never free. If we've never learned anything from our government thus far, nothing is ever free. Like we always pay for it. Middle class and lower class always pay for it. That's just the way that it has always been. And it's the way that it's always going to be. Like everybody knows there's always these great tax breaks for the wealthy, right? So please never for 1 second think that our government is really looking out for us. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy that we got it. I'm not an anarchist by any means, but people need to understand the reality of it. So yes, I do believe we will see foreclosures simply for that reason. It won't be right away, right? Because you can't turn around and foreclose on somebody's property right after COVID, especially with the threat of another strain right now, right? So it may be a little while before we start to see it, but when those banks that did not really look out for their clients to make it easier for the transition, those are the ones that we're going to start seeing the foreclosure. Like you'll notice when we start to see houses being foreclosed on, a short sale on, you're going to ask when you come across those properties, who is the loan through? And you're going to start seeing that same bank, 1 or 2 banks or whatever, how many ever. You're going to start seeing a common name amongst them because you're going to realize they're the ones that didn't really put in place a good bailout program for their customers.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more short sales than foreclosures because everyone's going to do modifications. And what's going to happen is when you do the modifications, you put all that amount towards the end of your loan. So it's still there. And then when they go to sell their home, they haven't paid on it like everybody else has. And now they're a year, almost 2 years behind. And so it is going to be more than what the home's worth. They're going to have to short sell because they're going to end up, the government's going to have them do the modifications and then they're going to end up putting it at the end of the loan. So you're going to see the short sales pop up. I would say give it another year. You'll start seeing those short sales pop up. Now this string will make a difference, right? But if it stays right where it is, I say it within a year.
Yeah.
Is it better to buy a property in foreclosure or short sale?
I guess it depends on the buyer.
Well, the banks are going to try to get as much money as they can for the property. And like Thomasina was saying, in those short sale cases, the banks are owed more money than what the property is worth. That's why it has to be short sold. But the thing of it is, the difference between a foreclosure and a short sale is the short sale, the seller has no money for any repairs or anything along those lines.
Yes.
A foreclosure, the bank owns that property. So there might be the opportunity to get a better deal as a foreclosure simply because the bank owns that property and they want to get rid of it. But it's really going to depend on what our market looks like at that. Like if it is desperate, if we see a lot of short sales pop up, the banks might take whatever they can get and you might get lucky, but you're not getting any repairs done. And you'll see a lot more bitter people who are being forced out of their home at that point too. So I saw when I first got into real estate, there was still quite a bit of short sales and foreclosures going on. And I saw some people that did some significant damage to the property because it was no longer theirs. And they were very bitter at the situation. So you'll see an inflation of investors at that point.
Correct. But at the same time, I think, I don't know, I am wrong, maybe with a short sale, you can take the property cheaper. Well, maybe because you need more repairs.
If you
not
have
always.
enough inventory, you'll see them cheaper.
It just depends. So it depends on the bank and who owns the home. So some short sales you can get repairs done. It depends on who the bank is on the other side because the bank will pay for it. But it just depends. For REOs, some you won't even get any repairs because it depends on what the bank is. Some of them are as is. It depends on the loan that the home will take. It just depends. It really, truly depends on who the bank is that has that home, whether you're going to get a good deal or not. It really does. Some banks are tight. Some banks are not. Some banks are loose. Some banks are not. I mean, it really just depends. They're both a gamble. You really are having to consider that you're taking home as is no matter what.
Yep.
You don't really know if you're getting a deal or not. Remember, loan to value, and then also whenever you are getting ready to go into a home, whether you're living in it versus flipping it, you should only be paying 75% of the value of the home if you're flipping it, and that's really hard to find right now. So you're not going to do it. So it really depends on the situation and who owns that home. It's not really something you can answer. It's a case-by-case situation on that one.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, in both cases, we are going to get a clean title, right?
It's going to be a special warranty deed. Like that's the only thing the bank is going to sell it to you as is a special warranty deed. Which is why title insurance is going to be so important. Title insurance is important for any buyer, no matter what. It's a one-time fee and it protects them. So, but the banks, when they resell a property, it's a special warranty deed. So the banks will not guarantee anything. So like having a good title company or a good closing attorney is going to be key, and title insurance is going to be key.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So now that I've scared y'all with the market shift, how do we survive it? What do we do as agents to change our tactics? Because what is working now for us is not necessarily going to be what's going to work for us as the market shifts. So what are some different things that we can do to guarantee our survival through a market shift? Does anybody have any insight to that?
Well, I guess we have to have less expenses in order to move forward and not to get broke and die in the process. And then we have to work harder because, everybody's going to be in the same position and everybody's going to be looking for the same goals.
Everybody's going to look for the same shortcuts, right?
Yes.
But the first thing that you touched on, I think, is probably one of the more important things, right? Because when we are rocking and rolling and kicking ass and taking names and making all this money, we spend a lot more money more frivolously, right? We're like, let's put my name out there. Let's market. I got it to spend. I got it to lose, really is our mentality. We, as business owners, we should never think like that though, right? We should always be watching our dollar, figuring out if it's making us money or costing us money, what benefits it's giving us, and making sure that we reel it in when necessary. But as a market shifts and we go into a down market, we need to be like penny pinchers. Like we need to hustle everything. I don't know if any of y'all have ever hung out with Thomasina long enough, but as you start to grow in your business and you start to expand your business and you start to get more, when you outgrow your mentors, I should say, right? You should always readjust your mentors, right? Your mentors should grow with you. So you will always want to make sure that you have the right person giving you the right advice, right? So one thing that I do on a regular basis, at least once a month, is I sit down and I pick Thomasina's brain, because I know as a team leader with my own team and as a businesswoman and a single parent and all of these things that I have going on in my life, I need a strong-minded individual to give me the advice on the next step. And one thing that I've always appreciated about Thomasina is that she will literally anytime I'm thinking about a new marketing strategy. There we go. Strategy. I can talk, I swear. So anytime I'm thinking about a new marketing avenue, I always run it by her, and she's always like, well, did you ask them this? Did you ask them that? Could you ask them if they're willing to give you 1 month free? Or if you do this, will they give you half price? She hustles everybody through every scenario. It doesn't fucking matter if it's $5. She's gonna she can get it for $2.50. Like that, and that's her mentality. And as entrepreneurs, right? Because we are all in business for ourselves, because nobody's giving us a paycheck, right? We earn our money. As entrepreneurs, we need to have that same mentality. We need to make sure we are getting the best deal with everything that we're doing. We need to make sure that wherever we're spending our money is going to make us money. Because if it's not, it's gotta go. It has to go. It cannot stay, because you will not survive a down market, because you have more money going out than you have coming in, right? What are some of the finances that we can control?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
What are some of the finances that we can control? There's things that we have as agents that we have to pay, right? Rain, dues, and hurrah, they're never going away. But what are some of the things that we do have control over?
Food. Don't eat as
like
much
you
as we
said,
eat.
Say that one more time.
You mentioned marketing. I guess with marketing, we should be a lot more savvy and think about better ways to market ourselves where it's not costing us a ton of money.
So with both of y'all being new agents, Leticia, I know you said that you got to go, but let me just ask you real quick. What are some of the things that you guys are spending money on as far as marketing goes right now? I love a good goose egg. If y'all haven't heard, I have a cup story. I'll tell you in a second.
I don't know. I have been farming around my neighborhood and other neighbors. I guess I can farm another way. Maybe making more media.
Yeah.
Marketing.
So how much have you been spending on a regular basis? Have you been tracking that at all? And so when you're farming, you're printing out papers, so it's the cost of ink, it's cost of papers, like, you know, keeping track of how much money you're spending is really important, right? Because how do you know where you can cut back?
Yes, I have not been tracking it, but I guess I have been spending like $2.50 to $3 per house.
Per house. And how many houses would you say that you hit per month?
Probably 60. 70.
So
yeah,
that's $90, anywhere from, hold on, let me get a calculator. Let me calculate.
$120, 100 and
yeah,
like $200.
Yeah, so $200 a month, right?
Yes.
So knowing that we're about to go in a shift, and if it's not paying for itself, like how much business is it bringing you? How many deals have you closed since then? So I've always said this, I'll say it again. All the marketing that you're doing now is for business 6 months from now, right?
Correct.
But we have to make sure that we're never letting up on lead generation. That is our number one stream of business income. If you're not generating leads, then you are not closing deals. You cannot do one without the other. But what are some ways that we can cut back? Like, I don't know what kind of weighted paper you use or what kind of ink or anything along those lines, but when I'm getting ready to do something fancy, I buy the weighted paper. I buy that expensive paper, right? But as the market shifts, I'm going to be a little bit more cheap. I'm going to be like, let me hold on to that paper. Let me get something. because it are the people really going to know those subtle differences, but that can literally save you 5 to 10 cents per page, right? That money is coming
Yes.
back into your pocket. There is
Yes.
no such thing as any small cutbacks. All small cutbacks pay off in the end, right?
Yes. Like instead buying your stuff in a home Office Depot, you go to the dollar store.
Yeah. Anytime I do an open house, the Dollar Tree is my best friend. I spend
Yes.
$20 and I have an amazing open house, and my budget is where it needs to be. And every single one of my open houses always generates leads, every single one of them. So knowing where to spend your money and how to go about spending it is key in any market shift, because you want to make sure that you're still in the green, you're still okay. Even if you're breaking even through a really down market, you're still okay. You don't have to get out of the business. When the market crashed,
That's a great training. How to have a successful open house for $20.
we can do
What
it.
do we need to buy, Holly?
Yo,
What
we
do
can
need
do
to
it.
buy?
I have a method to my madness. We can do it. I'm very, very particular about how I do my open houses, and I do them very strategically. Like, I have certain amount of signs I put out. I only serve certain types of refreshments and stuff like that. I'm very, very specific about my open houses, and I do it for a reason, because it works and it's cheap and it's free for you to do. Like, the $20 is nothing. I can spend $20 and eat and be hungry 2 hours later. Like, $20 is nothing, because it's going to generate business. And that's really, really important as the market shifts, right? Like, you want to know that you're always generating business, because lead generation is our number one way to make sure that we still are getting paid later, right?
Mhm.
I could preach on that all day. So as we start to see the shift happen, we want to make sure that we are in the right mindset for that shift. So the next section, starting on page 23, is talking about get real, get right, mindset and action, right? So one of the biggest reasons that agents fail during a market shift is because they think they are the shit and they can survive any market condition. They refuse to believe that they literally just got lucky, right? There is a certain amount of skill that comes into selling real estate. We all know that. But when you're in an up market, you're so busy that it makes up for the wrong that you've done. So you're still successful, even though you may have messed up quite a bit, right? The difference is recognizing those mess ups, learning from those mistakes, and not making them in a down market, because you can't afford to, period. So never think that you are too good in real estate, that you are going to survive every market. Bill Crespo can actually attest to how hard that market crash was, because it almost pulled him out of real estate. Like, and he actually coaches on that desperation for money. If you're desperate for money and you're desperate to succeed, you have a better chance at surviving a market shift than other people. Like, the market that crashed took a lot of people out of the business, a lot. Like, they lost everything. They had houses they could no longer afford. They short sold their own homes. They had multiple homes. They had brokerages. It devastated the real estate community. But then there's people who shifted and kept plugging away to survive the market change, because the market is always going to change, and we have to be prepared for that. So how do you get yourself in the right mindset? How do you determine what the next step is for you and your business, and how you're going to go about generating leads and making sure that you're going to survive and get through the market? What are some mental things that you need to do? Any thoughts?
I don't know.
Well, right here on page 24, it has a great quote. It says, agents must rethink restructure, refresh, re-energize, and reinvent every aspect of their business. The Ostrich Approach guarantees extinction, right? So we cannot hide. We cannot bury our head in the sand and pretend it's not going to happen. We cannot, like, you can pray and you can trust in God all you want, but like faith without actions is dead, right? So you have to put in the work. You can trust that God is going to bring you through it, but you cannot trust that God is going to carry you through it. You actually have to do the work as well so that you can feel you have his support through everything that you're doing. I try not to get too preachy in these things, but like a lot of people believe in God. So it's very important for you to understand that God is gonna. Have y'all ever heard that joke where the person is like out in the ocean and they're waiting for God to save them, and he sends a boat, an airplane, all kinds of stuff, and he drowns, and then he's like, God, I was waiting for you. Why didn't you have me? And he's like, yo, I sent you all of these things, right? Recognize your life vest, right? Recognize it when it's thrown out to you. But taking the time out to mentally understand, all right, the market is shift. I'm going to have to shift with it. Bring peace to yourself, right? Understand that you're going to have to move with the market, right? Recognize what you're going to have to do differently. In a seller's market, the best way to get business is to go after those listings, right? And at that point, most listing agents, all those new rookies that are getting all the deals are reducing their commission, right? You're not going to be able to afford to do that later. So you're going to have to change your tactics. It's not, I'm cheap and affordable and you're going to make more money with me. It's, I'm going to be able to sell your house when nobody else can. How am I going to show you that? So your marketing material is going to change a bit. You're going to be showing them, this is what I do. This is how I market your home. These are the statistics in your area. These are your competition. Here's how I'm going to help you overcome your competition. And let me prepare you for the offers that we will see as we receive them. Being that strong, dominant listing agent is going to help you survive a down market when it is a buyer's market. You have to know the business at that point. But as a new agent, snatching up buyers is never going to be better for you because you're going to know, I can get you the sun, moon, and stars. You don't have to pay for anything. You don't want to say that like outright, but you're going to kind of like hint around it because you're going to be able to get them really amazing deals on homes, but the inventory is going to be low. You're going to sit there and you're going to see it and you're going to be like, well, you can buy this piece of crap and get all of this for it. Or you could buy this slightly better piece of crap and not get as much. Like, let's weigh it out. So there's always going to be some changes and fluctuations with it, but you have to be mentally ready. You have to know in a down market, you have to be at your A game. You have to know your contracts. You have to know your market, where your market share is. You have to understand what's going on in the economy. Like if you know jobs are getting ready to come to an area, that's a selling point for the sellers in that area. But like, look, there's people coming. You have a good opportunity here to get a really good amount of money for your house. So being the expert in your field is going to help you be successful in a down market. When it comes to reinventing yourself, you're not really reinventing yourself, right? You're not becoming a completely different person unless you're a lazy agent. Then you are. But if you're just a very solid agent anyways, you're going back to your fundamentals. If you had a solid foundation and then work got a little crazy and you weren't making your calls every day, or you weren't farming your neighborhoods, or you weren't sending out your mailers, whatever the case may be, you got a little busy, all of that stuff fell to the back burner, right? Market starts shifting. You got to start putting that back into your normal routine. So you're just literally going back to your basics. If those aren't things that you're doing right now, then yes, you have to reinvent yourself. You have to be that solid lead generating agent because that is your job. You are not a real estate agent. You're a lead generator, right? That's your job. You're at a call center. Hello, can I sell your house? That's your job because you want to make sure that you have more leads than you can handle, because that is what's going to keep you moving forward in the business. Make sense?
Oh, I say yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. So here's another quote that's on page 26. It says, you need to double your efforts to grow. That doesn't necessarily mean doubling the time spent. It means doubling the focus and intensity so that you are more efficient and effective during your time spent. A well-oiled machine. So where we could get distracted when we're making our calls by emails or clients that we have under contract because we're so busy, right? And we think everything's a 911. This just means not allowing outside distractions keep you from focusing on lead generation. If you block out 3 hours of lead generation each day, then you need those 3 solid hours to be specifically for lead generation. Nothing is going to, it's the end of the world is not going to happen in those 3 hours. And if it does, like, it's the end of the world. So like your priorities should be a little different. But nothing is going to happen in those 3 hours that cannot be handled after you finish lead generating. Like, you need to be in the moment and involved in what you're doing without outside distractions. Bill coaches for you to set yourself up the night before if you're lead generating the next morning. So what he means by that is having all your numbers and all your follow-ups organized and ready to rock and roll. So when you are starting your lead generation, your phone calls, you're making calls one after another. You're not researching no properties. You're not reviewing notes. You're not doing any of that because you're already set up and ready to rock and roll. Doing that allows you to put in a full time frame, 3-block time frame for lead generation only. And it is a numbers game. The more calls you make, the more deals you're going to get. It is statistically proven over and over and over again. Is there going to be a shift when the market shifts? Sure. But still, the more calls you make, the more deals you're going to get. Like, it's just that simple. You might have to make more calls in a down market to maintain what you were doing in an up market, or you might have to make more calls just to break even. Like, that's just the market shifting. But the more calls you make, the more deals you're going to get. So you have to be desperate and hungry to get that money coming into your pocket. Bill talks about calls all the time. If you haven't spoken to Bill, he's very passionate and he talks about making calls all the time. Full support. So what time is it? It's 10:10. Oh, I don't know if I want to dive into this one yet then. How are you feeling, Lily? Are you feeling overloaded or you want to keep going?
Let's see. Checking to see if I'm muted or not. Oh, I think I'm good for today.
Yeah,
This is good. Yeah.
Next, all right. So the classes are going to be the first and second Wednesday of every month. I missed this last Wednesday or whatever. So our next class is going to be, oh, hold on. Let me exit out of that. September 1st. And we're going to dive back into the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And then on September 8th, we're going to continue on with our shift book. So I definitely encourage you to participate in both. Like I said, they're both available via Zoom. In person is going to get a lot more interaction. As you see, I like a very engaged class because it brings out more thoughts and perspectives from people. Mm-hmm. So I definitely would like to see you Wednesday the 1st while we dive into the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. Do you have that book already as well?
Yes, I do. And I believe I do have the shift book. I
on PDF.
I got off camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to go look for it. I have it because I've seen the book before.
Yeah.
When you picked it up, I'm like, Thomasina gave that to me the first day at the office.
That's probably a good possibility because she had some extras and she loves to educate her agents. So I personally have them printed out. I personally love books that I can hold on to. As you see, I have notes and tabbies and Post-its and stuff. Like, my books get very well used because they're amazing. So I can't get that same vibe when I'm reading a PDF. So get you a book in person if you don't have one, if you learn the same way as I do. So like,
Yeah, I need the book in
thoroughly enjoyed
person,
it.
so I'm gonna go ahead and look for it. But so
Yeah.
far, what I've learned is understanding your market,
Mhm.
all right, knowing the market, understanding the market shift, and knowing how to work each market during its shift. And lead generation is the most important thing about being an agent. And
Yeah.
that's something that I need to work on, is doing, having lead generations and just putting myself out there, farming neighborhoods, creating market material, but not spending as much money.
Yes,
And
I will tell y'all about my cups on the next class. What I did when I, as a brand new agent in my ignorance. So we'll talk about we'll talk about the $20 open house, and we will talk about, where to, because like the next section is actually talking about your business expenses. So we'll loop it all together, because there is a way to be a frugal spending agent and still be successful. Like there's definitely tactics that you can do, and we'll dive into that more to just talk about it so that we can make sure that everybody understands how they can be successful, even though they may not have a lot of money coming in. Like we all got to start somewhere, right? So we can absolutely go into that more because it's got good stuff.
Okay, that'll be helpful for me because I have an event on September the 18th, and I paid $25 for my own table,
Mhm.
and there are going to be a lot of vendors there, and I have my own table, and I like to bring in a loan officer to come in
Yep,
with
get
me
you a
as
lender
well.
sponsor to help team up with you, because like they'll put out their stuff as well. So that's that will be something we can cover. Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be good, and so yeah, this was good. This was helpful. This was good. Yeah, thank you.
Good. All right. Well, I'm gonna see you on the 1st then.
All right,
Hold you
and I'll
to
be
it.
there in person.
Yeah.
And if not, this is also great. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, as long as everybody's engaging, the class is phenomenal. It's when we have a whole bunch of people with not even their cameras on, and nobody's laughing at my jokes out loud, so I can't ever tell what's going on. Like I need to know. That's better that way.
Yeah, that's the only reason I turned my camera on for you. So I realized I'm the only one here. I'm like, okay, I have to turn it on.
All right, girl. Well, you enjoy your day, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.
All right, bye.
Good job.
Thank you.